What's up everyone? I just wanted to pop in to make a quick intro. In this video, you're going to see two games, my third and fourth round games. There are at least going to be three main things that we can learn from these games. So I hope you enjoy it. Now, before I show you my third game, I want to also show you what I had to say right after the game ended. Just got back from the morning round. Today is a double round, and I played against this young Indian, as I expected. Of course, I can't avoid them, but I managed to beat him. So that was a crazy game. There were so many tactics. Uh, yeah, I calculated quite well, but I just refused to make decisions. It's terrible. I got myself in time trouble. I feel like he didn't play well, and then in time trouble I gave him so many chances, and he made it super complicated. I thought I was lost at one point. It was rough, but you know, no time to no time to celebrate, because in like 2.5, 3 hours, there's gonna be the second round today, so the fourth round. Um, yeah, so wish me luck. 2.5 out of 3, not bad. I really needed this win. I really needed this win. So yeah, yeah. But we'll see. We'll see how good or bad I played. Um, you know, I'll I'll show you in a second. See you on the analysis board. And here we are at the analysis board. Spoiler alert, I did win this game. Now, in this round, I played against Yash, the young Indian player, and I'm playing white. So before the game, I had time to prepare, and I found out that he was a King's Indian player. So the game started out with knight of 3, knight of 6, g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, castle, castle, c4, d6. Nothing new so far. So I ended up playing knight c3, so this was my preparation. The main line here would be d4, and this transposes into the somewhat standard g3, or the fianchetto King's Indian. I went with knight c3. So the difference is that now here, black could play, and did, even my opponent played e5. So of course black can easily take the center, but that's still part of the plan and the theory. So d3, and my plan is going to be some sort of a queenside aggression with rook b1 and b4. So that's normally how the main line goes. So my opponent played c6, but the main line, or again, the more popular line is a knight c6, then white responds with rook b1, and then I want to go like b4. Black normally stops, or at least tries to stop it, with a5. That's a smart inclusion, but again, that's that's of course all theory. But my opponent played c6, which is a completely fine move, of course. It is still theory. Again, as I said, not as big or not as popular as knight c6, but c6 is, of course, a solid response. Now it went with rook b1. So here he followed up with a5. a5 is also fine. It fits into the position. Rook e8 was another move, potentially even a more popular move. So the point of rook e8, as you can see, that black wants to take the center even further with d5, but now white has this e4 move. Very interesting lines. This is something that I prepped. And after a5, I just got confused. So basically, I just straight up forgot my preparation, forgot the theory. So my preparation, I of course checked after the game. My preparation was h3, which is a very, very interesting idea, somewhat of a new idea. I want to play e4. I'm not letting you play bishop g4. It's of course, it's a deep idea, a lot of lines still, but okay. And then I went with b3. Now b3 is, by the way, a plan. or an idea in these structures, so it's not bad, but not like this. But it's still like this is, in this case, it's still fine. So again, b3 in these setups, it's completely acceptable. So normally white either goes a3 b4, so again the standard, somewhat standard, again, queenside initiative, or this b3 line, and then there are all kinds of either bishop b2 or e4, bishop b3, d4 stuff. So I went with b3. Of course, I was already mixing it up. He played knight a6, and now here I should play e4, the move that I was considering, again, just to be in line with everything, right? But then I played h3, and I just basically, I combined all the lines, together, and then I completely mixed it up. So basically, this is going to be our first main thing that we want to learn, and our main conclusion is rule number one, or principle number one, is learn your openings / don't forget your preparation. Now, the move that I wanted to play was e4. And of course, this would have been the better move as well. Now, my excuse for not playing e4, even though this was the main move that I was considering, was the fact that I was somewhat always afraid of c5. Now, do I have to be afraid of c5? Like, objectively speaking, is it a good thing to do as black? And the answer is no. I don't think it's a good move to make. But keep in mind, my opponent is like, hundreds, at least 100, closer to like 150 ratings lower than me, and I just wanted to keep the position as complex as possible, and I just didn't want to close the structure this much. Again, is it a great move to play? I don't think so. Like, objectively speaking, c5 is just an awkward move to make. Again, I have the standard knight e1 plan, and I go, let's say he goes knight c7, I go knight c2. So I have a very typical, like, knight e1, knight c2, knight e3, creating this square on d5, potentially going with f4 and all that. But I just didn't want to go for something like this. Again, I'm better here for sure. I just didn't really like all of these. Another line that I was considering after e4 was bishop g4. I was a little bit afraid, but not really. I was more concerned with c5, because after bishop g4, let's say h3, takes, knight c7. So the idea is that black wants to take the outpost on d4, but I can just simply drop back d1, knight e6, knight e2, covering this, and I can play f4, even d4 if you let me. I was more or less okay with this, even though black can still play, let's say, c5 here to close the structure, but this was like a better version of the same line. So I was okay with this, but just in general, I just didn't want to close the structure. And so I ended up playing h3, which was, again, a combination of a lot of things. Of course, one was that I just completely mixed up my preparation, and the other one is that I was just overthinking everything, and I didn't want to, again, as I said, close the structure. So I ended up playing some completely weird moves. So he went bishop d7, and now I went with e4. So now I changed my mind. So this is, of course, like a complete disaster. Like, not in terms of position, like even in almost in terms of position as well, but like as a thought process, this is just the weirdest thing. I even during the game, I felt really uncomfortable playing all of these moves, and e4 is just not great here. So again, I combined the three plans, the three different plans, or at least two different plans in like one game. It just didn't work, and it shouldn't work, of course. Now, a better move was some like a3, and then b5, I go b4. So this would have been fine. Now I went with e4, he went with b5, and even like immediately after b5, I might even be worse. Like, weirdly enough, black's position is very comfortable. it's probably a stretch, like black is not better. The way I played it, then black was definitely better. But again, I just wanted to keep as many pieces on the board to make the position more complex. But because of this mentality, I made just simply bad moves. So of course the best move would have been something like c takes b5, c takes b5, bishop g5 to control the d5, but I was just, after h6 takes bishop f6, it was just not a huge fan of this position in general. So I went with bishop b2, but bishop b2 is just not really optimal, let's just put it that way. Reason being is because I just have again a very like squished structure. So he played knight c5. The better move order would have been like b4, knight e2, and now either knight c5 or just c5 and just completely close the structure. This was exactly what I was afraid of, and this is like an even worse version because now he has a very good initiative on the queen side. He can go e4 even. He's always keeping the tension here on b3, right? And so he can take and maybe infiltrate or even push a3 to make the bishop really, really bad. The end game is also sketchy, so with a structure like that. So I just didn't like this. So he played knight c5, rook e1, and then b4. By the way, here I was considering c takes b5 in this position. C takes b5, c takes b5, and now I just wanted to break through. I just wanted to do something. But there was a forcing line that I didn't really like. Let me show you. So e takes d4, knight takes d4, and then b4. So here I have to sacrifice a pawn that I wasn't really comfortable with. I mean, technically I am winning more material, but I just didn't like it. So knight e4, knight takes f6. So this is all forced, right? And now I can take the rook. But I just did not like this. I didn't like this at all. I am missing the most valuable piece, the MVP of the position, right? The fianchetto bishop already has a pawn for it. He still has the light squared bishop. This is just, I just didn't like this. So I didn't want to go for it again. And because of this, I played again a questionable move. He went with b4, knight e2, and then he played queen b6, which is fine. I don't think it's the most accurate. Like, he could have played rook e8, and after rook e8, again, I think he has a almost better position. So, or even not even almost, he probably has a better position. So here I played queen c2. Now queen c2, I criticize my move here. I'm not a big fan of queen c2. Of course, I mean, I've been criticizing my moves for the past, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 moves, but even queen c2 is a little bit, modest. Here I think this was like almost high time that I did something like d4 to break through. Yes, it's a sacrifice, and I was debating whether to sacrifice or not, and I voted against it. I could have sacrificed the pawn. I think I have very reasonable counterplay here. I think this position is good for white. It's good for black as well, but I think it's almost even easier to play as white. So I probably should have gone this way. Anyway, I played queen c2, rook e8, rook bd1, and here, so this is where I'm not saying what I did was justified. It was not justified. The way I played was not right? But again, the reason why I played the way I played, because one, I'm an idiot, and second, because I just wanted to keep a very complex position where he has to make decisions. And again, it kind of paid off. It kind of paid off because he played bishop h6, which is a straight up a bad move. Like, it's almost a blunder. Funnily enough, like, bishop h6 doesn't even seem like a bad move. To be completely honest, I didn't even understand the move. Like, what was the point of bishop h6? But that besides the point. But it doesn't even look like a blunder, but it is borderline a blunder, and white has again, maybe controversial, but almost winning position. So again, not justifiable, but it kind of paid off because he made a mistake here, and now I went with g4. So g4 is a strong move because I'm winning a tempo. And I'm not just winning a tempo because, okay, he immediately went back, but I was able to now improve the knight, right? So in this position, it's like so hard for me to make my pieces better. I'm a little bit crippled here, right? So that's the problem here in this situation. But he went with bishop h6, and after g4, bishop g7, knight g3, I'm even almost arguably winning, because I am threatening g5, and now the knight can't really go really almost anywhere. I'm also playing d4 now, which is very, very annoying to deal with, because now this is protected as well. So yeah, he played h5, and then g takes, knight takes, knight takes, g takes. Now, and I went with d4. So the last couple of moves by me were really strong. Now I was able to grab the initiative, and now I'm doing very, very good here. Keep in mind, again, I was very low on time because as usual, I don't make decisions, and my opponent was quite fast. So for instance, like even bishop h6, let me jump back briefly to that moment. So bishop h6 happened very, very quickly, and almost all of these moves from this point on till almost the end of the game was like almost immediate. I don't even know why. And so this is something that maybe we can learn as well, or as a principle, is that don't rush, right? So especially when the opponent is low on time, and you don't have to mimic the pace, right? So because if the opponent has to rush and you keep you're doing the same thing, right? It usually doesn't really work out. So in these situations, it's better to slow down a little bit and make them work, really make them sweat. So, okay, we were here, d4, takes, bishop takes, and here I don't even understand myself, to be honest. Like, I was considering rook takes d4, which is obviously the very best move. And almost after rook d4, it's borderline game over. So let's say you protect it and I go e5, d takes e5, rook takes e5, and then your king is like so weak and vulnerable, you're getting checkmated, and then every piece in my position is working wonderfully. Like it's crazy. I played knight d4, which was still a fine move. It was just not as good as rook takes d4. Yeah. Queen d8, rook e3. But you can immediately like see how bad my position was before bishop h6, and how good my position is, and it was just one move. So how like tables have turned here significantly. So king h8, queen e2, queen h4, knight f3, queen f4, and this is where the the fireworks began. e5, rook g8, rook d4. So I was really low on time at this point. Right? I'm like at 1 minute. So queen f5, rook h4, knight e6. But funnily enough, queen d3 was also the very best move. Like, it was so weird. Like, I was down to my last seconds. Keep in mind, of course, there's always increment, 30 seconds increment, but I was just living off of my increment. And so in such an insane position, there are all kinds of tactical opportunities here for both. It was just madness. It was just madness. And here, when I played queen d3, I was like, oh no, unbelievable, I'm losing. I had like such a good position. I was winning for sure. I was, you saw it. And I'm like, no, I'm going to lose because there is rook g2, and I was able to calculate it very, very quickly. And I was like, oh no, unbelievable. And then he played it, and I was like, I cannot believe that I'm losing this game. King takes g2. Knight f4, and then of course I'm like, okay, I don't want to resign. So I'll show you why I believed I had to resign. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to resign just yet. Play the move, and then if I have to resign, I resign. Whatever. Rook takes f4, and here my opponent started, thinking like just a few minutes, and I was like, what are we considering even? Like, I don't even understand. Like, it's game over. No, like it's over. And then, like he started thinking, I was like, wait, maybe there is something. Like, I could play it off as like, oh, I calculated everything. Yes, I saw everything. And like, absolutely not. Like, I saw the majority of things. So I give that to myself, but I didn't see every single move. But I figured it out. So here he started thinking, because in my mind, he took on f4, by the way. In my mind, I was like, okay, after queen h3 is game over. Let me show you why. Because king g1, rook g8 check. Knight g5, rook takes g5, rook g3. And I was like, oh, I'm very good. I'm defending, right? So this was my position in my mind when I played the move queen d3, by the way. So just a disclaimer that in this position, right? Let me go back, knight e6. So again, I'm living off of my 30 seconds. So I was calculating a lot of lines, right? A lot of different lines. Queen d3 is indeed the best move, and I played it. But I missed. So I saw all of this, right? I saw all of this line, and this is the reason why I went for it. Because I was like, okay, queen d3 works because at the end of this line, rook g8, knight g5, rook takes g5, rook g3, I'm winning. And then, while he was thinking, I was also, going over all these lines, and then I just froze. I'm like, unbelievable. I'm losing this game because black has h4. And I'm like, unbelievable. Like, how, this is, I was, of course, mad. Because I was like, I'm losing. But at the same time, I was like, wow, this is great. This is going to be great content. And look, it is great content. Why? Because then I was like, wait a second, the line doesn't end because I can take on g5. It's even better content. Look, because takes and I have rook takes h4. How about that? Yeah.
Wait, all of you! Daddy, chill.
I was so pumped. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not losing. So I was very, very excited here. So these were such great moments. And now, again, another disclaimer. He played queen f4. And so in this one, I didn't see. So I didn't see the rook takes g5 move, right? So when he played queen f4, I was still I still believed that I was losing, right? So, and then when he played queen f4, I somewhat quickly took on d6, which was completely fine. And when I had a little bit more time on the clock, let's say like a minute and a half, whatever, I was like, wait a second. Why, I'm sure he was able to, calculate all of this, right? So why didn't he do it? And then I later, realized that, oh, I have, when h4 and I thought it's game over, I had rook takes g5, and then I was like, that's why he played it. So again, I was very close to resignation, but I kept on playing, and it luckily worked out for me. So e takes d6, and now again I'm winning again. So rook g8 check, king h1, rook g7, but I'm still under major time trouble. So this is a problem, and I did make a mistake because I played queen d4, which basically doesn't fully give the advantage away, but a big chunk of it. So the best one was rook e4, and then if you go, let's say, queen f6, I can play rook e5. So rook e4 was just winning straight up. I played queen d4, which was not great, because after queen f5 is a very annoying move. So now the only move to keep the advantage is a queen e4 that I completely missed. I mean, I saw the move queen e4, but I was like, okay, well, it's game over because queen takes h3, I'm getting checkmated. And then I even saw knight h2 in my mind, but of course I didn't see that the queen was covering g2, right? And the knight was covering f1. So it's not a checkmate, but now the queen is hanging, and so now I'm winning again, or at least very, very close to it. So I didn't see it. I went for something very, very solid, very defensive 91, which is not bad, but it just gives the advantage away completely. And then he played like good chess here. Like overall, like he was making the position very, very complicated. Queen h4, bishop c6, king h2, king h7, and I played d7. So I just wanted to make really, really sure that I'm not getting checkmated. Bishop d7, queen e4, queen takes, rook takes e4. So here, move 41, we got the extra time. Big relief, that's good. And I knew like, okay, this is potentially equal, but I think I have the advantage here for multiple reasons. Well, one, like just psychological, right? He was very close to checkmating me, but he didn't checkmate me. So that's awesome. Like immediately it's like, well, I survived. Like in his mind, right? Even in my mind, I'm like, I survived. So I was very, very confident here. And in his mind, it feels terrible, right? I'm like, I'm so close to beating an IM, to have a great game, and then he survives. Like it's just terrible. That's one. And also, even from a position perspective, it's not an easy position to play as black. The end game overall is just, I feel like, a little bit more, like just a little bit more comfortable for me, a little bit easier for me. My pawns are also weak on the queen side, but your pawns are a little bit weaker, or at least easier for me to attack them than you attack my pawns. Even though you have a light squared bishop and you can always play some like bishop f5, bishop b1, but still it's not that easy. Again, objectively speaking, it's like it's probably draw. But then he played rook g5 fairly quickly, which was a mistake. Of course, he wanted to play on rook e5, but rook g5 was a mistake. Knight f3, or at least inaccuracy, right? Bishop f5, king g3. And here by the way, he offered me a draw either here with rook f5 or here with bishop c6. Bishop c6 was basically the nail in the coffin. Like this is basically a losing move. After a4, it's still probably balanced or equal, I guess. But bishop c6 was a mistake, and then rook f4. By the way, learn your endgames, sorry, right? Endgames are so important. Like he went for this endgame thinking that maybe he can draw this, and this endgame is like completely lost. So bishop d7, h4, f6, knight d2, and it's pretty much game over now because every pawn is falling. King g6, knight e4, bishop f5, f3. f3 is such a nasty move, by the way, because this is what we call a Zugzwang, right? So knight c5 was winning as well, but f3 is just super nasty because you can't make a move, right? Because if you move the bishop, I can take the bishop. You can't play bishop b1, so it's great. a4, bishop takes a4, pawn takes a4, sorry. Bishop e6, knight d6, and then he resigned. So such a roller coaster, an absolute crazy game. There were so many things. I misplayed the opening, and then I completely outplayed him in the middle game due to his mistake with bishop h6, and then the all the tactics, and then the fireworks in the middle slash end game. It was rough, but got the win. That was nice. So yeah, awesome. Before we move on to game number 4, round 4 game, I want to again show you what I had to say after the 4th game ended. Finished 4th round. I lost. I played against this 19-year-old, almost 2,500 international French guy. I miscalculated something. I think I had a completely fine position out of the opening, and then I just made a silly mistake. I don't even know why I did that. Yeah. Well, after that, it was a struggle. I think I still could have fought a little bit better. I kind of acknowledged that the position is crap, and it was probably, but wasn't as bad as I thought. And I just maybe I just gave up like in my mind. I don't know, but the mistake was really really unnecessary. Yeah, this one is on me completely. Well, it is what it is. I mean, the result is not surprising, but just the gameplay was mid. Uh, well, yeah, um, it is what it is. I'm sure we could learn things from it for sure. So let's check it out. Yeah. And I'm back on the analysis board. Yep, unfortunate, I did lose this game. So in round 4, I played against Join Agustin, and I'm playing black. So I didn't have a lot of time to prepare between the rounds, so I want to play something solid. So I picked to his e4 move the Carcon response, which is c6. So in the brief preparation and the time I had, I saw that he plays the advanced variation, which is d4, d5, e5. I also saw that he plays knight f3, the move that he played against me, d5, but here I more or less expected the endgame line with d3. But instead he played the knight c3 move, which is completely fine. Of course, it's a very, very popular line. It's not a line that I looked at very closely before the game, so yeah, but it's fine. Of course, I was still more or less aware of the lines here. Again, the emphasis on more and more on the less part. But I played bishop g4. The other main line is a d takes c4. Bishop g4 is, of course, a very big line. h3. I took on f3, which is the more solid option. Bishop h5 is also a line. It's a little bit sketchy line. It's a long line. And at the end of the line, white should be better. I was not feeling that line, so I just wanted to play something solid. Bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, e6. So the main lines here are bishop e2 and d3. So these are the main moves. He instead went with the move d4, which is also well known. D takes e4. So I expected queen takes e4 here, which is, I think, generally speaking, is the more expected move, but knight e4 also exists. So to be completely transparent, I wasn't fully aware all of the moves in this line. Like, I had a somewhat of a good idea of the main moves, but I didn't know, I wouldn't really claim that I knew or I remembered everything. I mean, as you saw, even in the previous game, I even prepped for the line and I still forgot it. So so what do you want me to do? Yeah. So, but I did take on d4. I did remember the move that this is the best. c3, queen d5, bishop g5. So f5 again here. I wasn't really fully aware, but these moves were somewhat obvious. Knight d2, and now unfortunately the game pretty much ended here, which is weird. Like, it's super weird. It's such a weird thing to say, but in my mind, the game kind of ended here, and this is where I think that we can learn the second principle. I mean, even in the previous game, we learned quite a few things, in my opinion, but let's just say that this is the second main thing to learn from these games, and that is, make sure you don't end your calculation too early, right? So be precise with your calculation. Why do I say that? Because I played the move knight f6. And this is just straight up a mistake. Like, this is not a huge blunder, but it is a borderline a blunder. And I'll show you why it's a blunder. So before that, the best move would have been queen takes f3. And after queen takes f3, black is completely fine. Queen takes f3, knight takes f3, h6, bishop d2, knight f6, bishop c4, knight d5, and I'm okay. I'm okay here. So does white have compensation here? Absolutely. Let's say long castle, knight d7, rook e1, king f7, g4, g6, but I'm safe. I'm safe and secure. Black should survive here. no problem whatsoever. But instead I played knight f6. So my reasoning behind this was that there is basically no difference between the lines, yeah. But I still wanted to have the flexibility here a little bit, as well as, you know, I just didn't want to technically go against the principle of like, you know, I don't want to trade, I want you to trade for me. But here it was just like the principle still stands and it's correct, but in terms of calculation, in terms of the forcing line, is just simply straight up incorrect. And by the way, I think it's even like a little bit, you know, silly, because if white plays bishop c4, I'm very likely going to take on f3, right? Knight takes f3, and then okay, maybe I have knight e4 here, but I'm probably going to play knight d5 anyway. So it's like it was very, very silly of me, right? But okay, again, like I was like, okay, well, I'm just following the principles. I'm following what I teach, right? Like this makes sense. But I also teach that be precise with your calculation. Why? Because if you end the line a little too early, you kind of, you know, suck. Or you could, definitely, right? Because in my mind, okay, like bishop takes f6 is not a problem because queen takes f3, knight takes f3, I take back and there's absolutely no problem. And here I immediately ended the line, right? So before I played the move knight f6. And so I wasn't even too concerned about this line. I'm like, okay, whatever, like we trade off 2 pieces. Like, why would I ever worry here? And so I wasn't really into these lines. I'm like, okay, whatever, I don't, no problem. And this is the mistake, right? So this is the most forcing line in the position. So calculate it precisely. Don't just say, especially after a capture. This is like almost rule number 1 in calculation, right? After a capture, you never say like, oh, it's over, right? Like, okay, the line is over. Evaluate the position, understand if there are no more active moves, and then you make an assessment, right? And here I just stopped because thinking like, oh, okay, whatever, no problem. And here, if white goes knight d4, I just have a terrible position, because let's say I can't push e5, and if you go king d7, bishop c4, and so it's not that, okay, it's not like I'm losing completely, but white gets to win the pawn back with a significantly better position and just a lot of weaknesses in my structure. So this was just straight up bad. Now, luckily, my opponent served with bishop f4, which was weird. I feel like, again, was almost a gift. Like, why do you start with this move? It's not a horrible move, but it just, after knight d4, white has clear advantage. Bishop c4, after bishop c4, white doesn't have a clear advantage because I have e5, long castle. But of course, Agustin, you know, was somewhat lucky because he played against me. And so here, I made another move. So another move that was terrible, But you know, if you remember, I said after knight d2, right, that I more or less lost the game at that point. So when we go back, and let's go back to the knight d2, right, and when I played knight f6, and then I realized that, oh, knight f6 was a mistake. Of course, I played it, and I immediately realized that it was a mistake. I kind of gave up, you know, just straight up. I can't lie, I don't want to lie. In my mind, I was like, well, I screwed up. You know, I don't think I have very good chances. You know, he's like almost 2,500. He's good, he's ambitious, he's active, whatever, right? I don't think I can come back. And I kind of believed myself, you know, like I kind of believed it, you know. So I kind of manifested this idea, which was of course silly of me, right? Because here I more or less like I resigned. And so, for instance, when we got to this position after bishop c4, which was a mistake, I was still in the assumption that the position just sucks. You know, like the position is just borderline terrible. And that's actually not the case. Like the position doesn't look great, but it's actually not bad. Like if I go f4 here, the position is completely fine. And after rook e1, knight e7, and I'm okay. I'm actually going to be able to finish development here, weirdly enough. Is it still a lot easier, as white? Yes, of course. White has a way easier game. But I survive here. I do survive. If you go bishop b6, I have knight b6. That's okay. If you give me a check, I can just very, calm and collected king e7, no problem. Yeah. So, but I played knight a6. And after knight a6, like, I'll show you guys the game, but it was just game over. Because after rook e1 is just a mess. Because now this is knight e5 is a big threat. Knight e5 is a big threat and I'm losing. So if I go knight c7, you go knight e5 and I resign because of all the tactics. Right, so let me show you quickly. Takes, bishop b7. Let's say you pin me and I resign. So I played rook d8, but then he went with knight d4. Knight d4 was also an inaccurate move, and this is something that overall like bugs me about this game, is that had I not resigned in my mind, right, like mentally, I was like, whatever. Like he's better than me. He's just going to outplay me for sure, right? Had I not had this bad mentality, had I just believed in myself and was like saying, hey, you can do this, you can come back, you can like, he's not better than you, right? At least you gotta believe, because if you don't believe, who's gotta believe, right? Basic, very basic, right? And so I never really believed in myself, and because he didn't really play like the best moves, right? Like, okay, when he was winning, of course he played well, but like in the critical moments, he didn't make the best decisions. Even knight d4 was inaccurate, because here, even again now, if I play f4, I survive. If you go knight f5, I have bishop c5, it's okay. If you go knight e6, I can take knight c5, rook d8, king e7. And okay, you have this endgame. I have rook, you have two minor pieces. But in an endgame, the rook can be just as good as two minor pieces. So generally speaking, this this imbalance is better in the middle game for the two minor pieces. In the endgame, the rook can be just as good. And here, I don't think I'm worse. I genuinely believe that I shouldn't lose this endgame. But again, even after knight e4, I was like, okay, well, I lose. So I played bishop c5, and after knight e6 takes, king e7, knight g7, I basically do lose, right? Because the position just falls apart. Bishop f2, knight f5, because my king is just too weak, right? And my pieces are very, very passive. And bishop e2 was a very, very strong move. So bishop e2 was a great move. And after this, I have no chance. I have no chance, because bishop h5 is coming no matter what, and then he's just going to infiltrate in my position. So this move, this bishop g4, and then he played well here, right? So no comment here, honestly. He just crushed me. He just crushed me. I had, as you can see, just sorry, I quickly go over it, not because I'm like, it's just, there not much happened. It was just so straightforward. Yeah, it was just it was unfortunate. Yeah, so so here we can learn another thing, in my opinion, right? A very, very important thing. And this, let's end the video here, with the third rule and the third principle, which is very, very easy, very straightforward. Just don't be an idiot. That's it. All right, guys. Well, see you in round 5. Take care.